Good evening. For those watching, I'm Helen, leader of the New Zealand Political Party. Tonight's interview is with our new policy advisor, and shortly we will unpack where he came from and why. I'm just aware. Okay, a little bit of technological issues. Hopefully, you can hear me this time. Maybe if somebody can actually make a comment if you can hear. Hopefully, you are. I'm going to just continue. What I'll start with is when someone who's got decades of experience in policing, politics, and public service chooses to back a smaller party instead of staying with the political establishment, that's what we're going to explore tonight with Ross Meurant. So he's in the waiting room, and I'm going to bring him in shortly. Oh, somebody has said no, it's still not good. I'm not sure what's wrong with the sound, so hopefully when I bring Ross in, it might change. I'll bring Ross in to the stage. Okay, so we've got Ross here. Maybe it's change now. Good evening, Ross.
Good evening, Helen. Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls. Just before you start, your audio is not that flash at the moment.
Yes, I know your audio is going well, so we'll just leave you to talk for a while and figure it out.
So, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. Perhaps you could start with what your career is and what you hear tonight.
Run that again, because I'm not getting you very clearly.
Okay, I understand the audio is not good.
No, okay, that's better. That's better.
To the audience, your career in the police force, as well as the National Party in public things.
Okay, the first question though, can you hear me clearly? You can, okay. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I suppose how I'm here is I became very disillusioned with the National Party. I've been a National MP and supporter for a long time, but as I looked at the performance of National over the last 3 years and their failure to deal with the legacy of Jacinda Ardern, very disappointed. In fact, I've penned somewhere else, Jacinda, in my view, was the most destructive, divisive, dangerous Prime Minister we ever had. And but in my view, Mr. Luxon's team failing to deal with that, or her legacy. So I looked at ACT, and I mean, if we step back, National always has had liberal and conservative elements. But it seems that the liberal element pretty much have gone to ACT. The conservative element has gone to Winston. And so then I looked at the Winston, and although we went to school together, and at one stage I went back to Parliament as his advisor and have been a close friend of his at times, again, Winston says it, but increasingly it's pretty clear that he doesn't always do it. And that failure, again, disappointed me. And then I look at, he's just recruited a cabal of what to Mr. Nash and Michael Laws and Mr. Jones, and I can imagine, well, a spy tells me already internecine warfare is brewing. So I thought, well, so then I looked at the Conservatives and checked that a couple of names weren't there, which was encouraging. What stood out was family as a principle, and for me, family is most important. Scrolled a bit further down, private sector over the public sector, over government commerce. So those are the fundamentals for me. So then I decided, well, perhaps I'll give the new boss a call, and I contacted Helen, and so here I am tonight.
Marvellous. I'm just hoping that my sound is better. While we were, I've got some background working with sound. Could you just explain what you did during your time in Parliament?
Well, in Parliament, I went in as a backbencher. Look, my life has been just a turbulence. Maybe if I start a little bit earlier, I was brought up in the working class zone of Dargaville. Wasn't a great childhood, and but by the time I was 18, I failed school certificate. So things weren't going too well, and took work as a concrete worker. Well, the last 18 months that I was in Dargaville were very good to me. I made the local representative rugby team, bought a brand new car, and then got recruited into the police. In the police, I passed out 6th in my recruit wing, which surprised them and surprised me. A bit later, 6 years later, I passed out 2nd in my detective course, which surprised them. But what I'd found that when I was my own person, all of a sudden I performed a lot better than I did as a kid. So my career then had already become turbulent, though. And this turbulence, it comes right through to when I'm in Parliament. The first homicide I was on was the Crewe homicide. And on 2 occasions, as a scene searcher of the homicide scene, I never found a cartridge case. However, after the bodies were found and we knew what we were looking for, a different group went back and they found the cartridge case. Mike Charles found it. Well, Mike Charles didn't plant it, and it's pretty clear from the Royal Commission of Inquiry that it was planted, and it was planted by Bruce Houghton. But the ironies are, as time went on, later as a detective in drug squad, I became very close to Bruce Houghton. In the intervening period, I had become a lot different to the young boy from Dargaville. I sort of had become an enforcer. I got bigger, stronger. I was playing first grade rugby in Auckland. I was into karate. John Hughes was my boss, Graham Perry, and we had a direct link to Walton. And this is very much the theme of a book I have written. It's called Rule of Police Over Rule of Law, and it's protect the system at the expense of justice. But at a certain point in my career, I was deep in the forest of this subculture. But time moved on a bit, and I began to have an epiphany that it's not such a good idea that this boy from up Dargaville can decide who's going to go to jail, and we can work it out how you get there. So a change was beginning to descend on me. I remember going to Graham Perry and saying, because I'd passed all the police exams, Mr. Perry, university have offered me an opportunity. He said to me, this is in the middle of Vietnam time. Are you a communist, Meurant? So I didn't go to university for another 2 years till I was a sergeant. But I did then go to varsity, and I finished a BA and part of a law degree. But again, on the way through, I suppose I was a sergeant for 2 years. That was a different dimension to me. And what resonates to this day is the number of dead people that I dealt with, because at that rank, motor accidents or cotton deaths, it was, not a good time. But then I ended up at a control room senior sergeant, and the computers had just arrived. So as a young senior sergeant, I was put in the control room. Then I was seconded from there to Red Squad, and probably because of my previous image or reputation as a hardline detective in that role, unquestionably, I did play a leading role. I wrote a book, The Red Squad Story. But this is where more ironies come into it. Just prior to the Red Squad days, there was a Royal Commission of Inquiry into the Crewe homicide. Now, I was taken aside by Mr. Walton, and it was explained to me that it would be a good idea if I changed my evidence that I'd given in previous cases. And again, I mentioned I was having an epiphany, and this really resonated. Here I was with a young daughter, just mortgaged a wife, and it's not a good idea to change your evidence after you've given it 2 or 3 times in another court case. So I refused, which was me putting principle ahead of self-preservation. It didn't go down well with Mr. Walton. Then there was the Red Squad saga, and unquestionably Red Squad came out of that as heroes. But that didn't last for long. And out of the blue, I was approached by disciples of Walton saying, just give the commission a 2 to put before the courts. The whole pendulum had swung. So this time I took the case again. I took the case of protecting Red Squad to the ombudsman. That did not go down well with Mr. Walton again. Then all of a sudden I've got a degree and I'm qualified for commission, but talking about my police career, that was delayed by Walton until he retired. Ken Thompson came in and commissioned me the next day. So the ups and downs, just a couple of points as a commissioned officer, the 3 occasions when I was armed all the time. I could have shot 3 people. I never shot any of them. One of them fired a shotgun at me from 20 meters, missed. He was charged with attempted murder of me. The other guy, it's all on TV, came out of a bank, and as he raised the shotgun at me, I raised the 38 and said, put it down, pal. We're 20 meters apart. He put it down. He went to jail. I went home to my kids. But this, again, for the, how would you say, the criticism I've had over the years for being a nasty bagger. There are so many examples that I am proud of that I did not do what I'm alleged to have been prone to do, and say, not shooting those 3 guys. I could have shot them lawfully, but I did not. So that was my police career. From there, I went into Parliament. But again, very soon, there was allegations that I was an arms dealer. Now, a fellow I'd been through commissioned officers course with, he was a major in the army, came to me and said that there's 6,000 SLRs we can't sell, Labor won't let us sell them. But however, another person you went to school with, Ross, and Winston went to school with him too, former Lieutenant Colonel, he's now in the Oman Army as a procurement officer. He'll take the firearms. So I put this on a parliamentary letterhead to Mr. Bolger. Within 12 hours, it came back, well, you can't put this on a parliamentary letterhead, put it on a private letterhead. So the new boy, I put it on a private letterhead. Next thing I know, I'm in the media as an arms dealer. So, I mean, as time goes through with Parliament, I am very mindful of what Wallace Rawlings said at some stage. In politics, it's not your friends you have to worry about. Not the enemy, you can see them. It's your friends that come from behind. I think one of the reasons why Mr. Bolger and I clashed was because of my profile from Red Squad. I had a positive high profile when I went into Parliament, and John Banks and I both had a higher positive, I forget how they do it, but we had a higher positive profile than Mr. Bolger. So we trundled through the first year, but we come to the 1990 elections, and you may recall National said they would repeal the surtax. First thing we did was not repeal the surtax. And those of you, we had got in with a 32-seat majority. The pendulum had swung our way. The failure to repeal the surtax saw the membership of National devastated across the country. I went live with Susan Wood and, again, put principle ahead of self-preservation and addressed the issue. Well, it didn't go down well with the ruling cabal. But in 1993, if anybody recalls, the pendulum swung back and we came in with a 1 majority because of the devastation that breach of promise had wrought on New Zealand, on the National Party. Just before the end of that term, also, there was one occasion when the Prime Minister and his cabal convened a Thursday meeting. Now, caucus is on Tuesday. On Thursday, he said, we're going to, under urgency, deliver Maori priority rights on the foreshore. Now, 3 cabinet ministers objected because of collective responsibility and putting self-preservation first. They didn't go any further than that. That night I went live on Holmes and took the issue live. Mr. Bolger had to appear and he backed down. I mentioned my career in the police and politics has been tumultuous, self-inflicted wounds all the way, usually by putting principle ahead of self-preservation. So in my third term, rather than being in cabinet, I was in the executive, but I was Under Secretary for Forestry, Under Secretary for Agriculture and Biosecurity, as I recall.
Can I just stop you there, Rob? As you go back to principle, you're in the right party when we put principle above self-preservation. I want to go on about the rest of your parliamentary career. You talked a little bit about police corruption. You've written a few books. Can you elaborate on those books, or maybe a couple of those books you've shared that?
Yeah, well, it's taken some time. It's taken me about 3 or 4 years to put it together. It's been proofread by 3 KCs, or QC of what they call themselves now, for defamation, because one has to be very careful because it names real people, real places, real times, and it traces some 17 different cases, from the Crew homicide right through the Hall case, which is currently before the courts, Bain case. But it demonstrates the culture which I was part of as a young detective. And I make a case in the book. It was nurtured by John Hughes, the most inspiring leader I ever worked with. But he certainly had an attitude. He had a close, direct link to Walton, so that when things went wrong, and there are cases in the book where I say, during the court case, the judge said there needs to be a perjury inquiry here, but on each occasion, Walton blocked it. Now, it's that culture which is, we rule this town, firstly, and then when things go wrong, and a court says, and it wasn't just that case, there are other cases where it's clear evidence that there were perjury, it's blocked at the top. That, in my view, is protecting the system at the expense of justice. But it wasn't just the police. There are cases specified where I say Crown law should have, for example, stepped in and, in my view, without what's in the paper now, but well before the Hall case being there, the Crown lawyer should have at some stage said, the evidence suggests that it wasn't a white person who did it. So we need to withdraw the prosecution. So the collusion with the Crown, with the police, is part of this. Justice needs to be protected at the expense of, the system needs to be protected at the expense of justice. So that's what the book's about. Mainstream media have so far declined to run it. But back to Plato, isn't it? We can understand why kids are scared of the dark, but when grown-ups are scared of the light, we've got a problem. And for some reason, these mainstream media don't want to know. And I say, this has been vetted by 3 QCs. There's no defamation there, a lot of care, a lot of specificity. So we'll see what happens, whether I publish it or not. But as time goes on, there's always a penalty. Again, as Voltaire says, it's dangerous to be right when the system is wrong.
I'm going to stop you for a minute. Just got some questions coming through, some comments. Great to see you, Marie. I noticed that you've popped in. Luke, great to see you as well. He's just said it's good of you. I'm not sure if you can see that, Ross. And we've got Marsha joining from Washington, DC, so your popular interview tonight. Charmaine's asking on the police. I do have to apologise for my sound. The police have sinful rainbow community signage on their official account. What do you think about the woke culture infiltrating the police? Would you like to address that, Ross?
I better read that, please. What do you think about the? What? Well, yes, okay. I couldn't hear you properly. I see that. This subculture about the subculture there includes to get an arrest to get promotion. Now, I make a case that that was a driving factor with Houghton planting the bullet in the Crew case. The Olive Walker case, I think the commissioner went there and it's in the book. You either get an arrest or you're gone. Well, the guy said, I can't, because the evidence isn't there. The next day, that commanding officer was transferred back to the uniform branch. So as we go through these parodies, the cops in charge becomes under pressure to get results. But so the culture is wider than that. Then you come forward to the McSkimming affair. Well, that wasn't an attempt to get a conviction or anything, but the same culture, right, is protect what was going on. And I think a strong case can be made to say that subculture, which began in 1970, goes through 17 different cases. I mean, I was OC body for the first female that the Tamahiri murdered, or he was convicted of manslaughter as a hooker. So then there's the Swedish tourists. So I've got no affinity to those people. But if I objectively look at the system and the conduct of the police, it needs a review. It needs a review in a big way. And if you come forward to the McSkimming affair, as I view the media, there were attempts to cover up what was going on. That's not to put McSkimming didn't try to put somebody in jail or others, but what it seems to me, they tried to cover up what was going on there. So it said protect the system at the expense of justice, which began way back in 1970 through all these different cases, manifests in a slightly different way in the McSkimming affair.
Okay. And January said all the commission men is a great, the lost criminal remedies. I'm not sure about that book. I'll put it up in case you read that. Trey's, good evening, Trey's, good that you've joined us. Luke has said comments on the removal of the right to be tried by jury for certain crime in the UK. Have you got anything to say about that? Do you know about that?
I didn't hear that properly. All the commissioners, man, what was the point?
I think he's asking, have you got any comments about the removal of the right to be tried by jury for certain crimes in the UK? Maybe
is it the removal of the right to be tried by jury certain crimes? No, I can't follow that. I'm not hearing you that well, and the specificity of the question. Contents of the removal of the right to be tried by jury for certain crimes in the UK.
I think he's just asking if you've got any comments on it.
Sorry? No.
Have you got it? No. It's okay. We don't have to know everything.
Yeah, no, I'm smart enough to know I don't know everything. Yeah.
Yeah. I also like to focus on what we've got in front of us in New Zealand. But thanks for the question. You've got here from Lynn. Talk about the gun Lovelock retrieved from Mackin couple, the Chitty's farm. Workers have murdered the course of justice. Do you know anything about that? That's from Lynn.
Again, I can't hear you properly, but the Lovelock report was the police attempt 45 years after the Royal Commission of Inquiry to review the Crew case. Now, in my view, that was an insult to justice. Police had destroyed much of the evidence. After 45 years, so many people, witnesses weren't there. The mind isn't as good as it was. Whereas the Royal Commission happened 9 years after the murders. and everything was fresh in the mind, and the police had not got around to destroying evidence, which is clear evidence that they did after the Royal Commission dumped a lot of the evidence. So the Lovelock report, I was asked to be interviewed, but I would say an insult to justice. No disrespect to Lovelock, but parody.
Holly Hickey. I apologise. Sound you let Ross do most of the talking. I'm just wondering, Ross, if you turn your where is it? Your mic off when I talk. Maybe that'll help. I don't know. Oh, is that better? Can you hear me now? Maybe I'll mute when I'm talking. There's one thing I actually wanted to just talk with you as well. Where are we? I have a question from somebody else. Right. I found a quote, a previous quote of yours, where you said, "Today I find myself in a role not dissimilar to John Minto, 1901. Differences stand against apartheid in New Zealand." How has that led to us today?
Could you say that again?
Awesome. Good one. Right. You said about John Minto that you found yourself not similar to him, and that the only difference is you stand against apartheid. Do you remember that quote?
I mean, for me, becoming involved again in politics, it's important. Equality before the law is important. Under Jacinda, I think we ended up with, well, not quite relevant to the case with Minto, but this imposition of Maori culture on the country by Jacinda's regime, in my view, amounted to apartheid. And if we listened to some of the more radical Maori advocates, my last job in the police was in charge of criminal intelligence, that is, collecting data on people who were threatening the state. And in my maiden speech, well, there was another tumultuous moment. My maiden speech, and I delivered the names of a number of Maori people, radical Maoris, who had made various threats against New Zealand. That was my last job, VIP protection and collecting criminal intelligence. Now, some of the things that have been said under Jacinda's regime by some of these Maori, radical Maori leaders, in my view, most amounts, well, probably treason. We will get it. It's ours, and we'll get it by force. I mean, that's dangerous stuff. This aspect, this is apartheid. I mean, you know, if I look back from where I come from, Stan and I have royal Maori pedigree, which really annoys some people. This French fellow arrived here and he married Tufira for his niece. She was a princess. So on the way, he was a interpreter at the Treaty of Waitangi. So I have French and Maori and a lot of Scottish on the paternal side. I've got Irish, Catholic grandmother on the other side. My father, he was orange. My mother, she was green. That was a mess. And Norwegian on that side. So I've got a mixture of background. Winston has got Maori and Scottish. Clem Simic is from the same zone as me, Croatian and Maori. We all came from a lower decile, social and eco decile in the country. Now, how do you rate success? Is how much money you've got or what you achieve or whether you get a degree or whatever. But the probability is most would think that Clem Simic and Winston and me, by different measurements did pretty well. We did it without any artificial aid, not welfare, not extra health, not extra this, extra that. In my view, one of the biggest damages to Maori is the not just decades, almost centuries now of welfare. It undermines the self-confidence of too many, and they become reliant and dependent on handouts. I mean, but so if you're
I think it's a really big conversation that we could maybe do another time. Oh, good. Thank you to the person who asked me about if I had another mic on. I've just searched and somehow I did have two mics. So one's gone now, and I'm pretty sure you can all hear me much better.
Yes, I can hear you good, yep.
Marvellous. Okay, now just on what you've just said, I think that conversation is for another time, and we definitely should tap into that, because it's a much bigger conversation. But look, just talking about the economy, I mean, New Zealand economy is not in a good state, aside from the hospitality and the big developers going under. You know, I mean, what, in your opinion, do we do about this? We put out your economic policy today, as well as a few other areas which we'll cover. But do you have, could you tell the audience today who may not have seen our recent publication about, what are we going to do with New Zealand's economy?
I mean, when Clinton was asked, what's the election about? He said, it's the economy, stupid. So all these other issues are important, but the most important is the economy. And I mean, there's various, I did a master's degree in privatization of the state. That equipped me to operate around the world, help as a consultant in different countries. I was made the honorary consul in Morocco. I worked in the Middle East, all over the place. So it doesn't make me an expert, but I do understand. And back in New Zealand, you only got to go and look at the company's office and how many companies I've had involved with exporting primary product and other stuff out of the country, or being a consultant to foreigners who've come in and asked to get access to fish or meat or whatever. So I have a reasonable understanding about the practical application of economics, if not only a master's thesis, not a PhD.
Well, it's great to have your views on board with us. So, yeah, we know you're bringing in huge experience and value.
One of the biggest problems is the tax rate. Labour curve, I mean, the taxes in New Zealand are very high. So I think one of the firstly, what we must do is protect private property, because that is the cornerstone of the private sector. It's the cornerstone of private personal security. Whether it's a small entrepreneur who can see a gap and he'll mortgage the house and go out and take a risk and buy some tools or buy a computer and start a business, or a big conglomerate, they still need to own property to get the money to go and develop. So a cornerstone for me is protection of private property. And that's, again, comes back to this usurpation of land by various groups. So protect private property, lower tax. Now, the Labour curve demonstrates that if you lower tax, I mean, people think the lower tax, IRD is going to get more, are going to get less. Well, that's not the case. And in fact, when Roger Douglas lowered tax, IRD got more money. So you lower tax, all of a sudden people stop hiding money and they declare it. Companies who go offshore to get away from the high tax come back. So this then creates more employment in New Zealand. So by lowering tax, you have a higher probability that entrepreneurial young people won't desert the country. They'll see a gap, give it a shot. And to me, that's the focus of where the Conservatives should have their priority. The specificity of a tax environment that encourages people to stay in New Zealand, that encourages companies to come back to New Zealand to create jobs.
100%. I just noticed we've got some lefties on our page. Isn't it lovely that they're so bored on a Monday night that they come and join our interview, Ross? They're talking about our, it's exciting for our 17 voters. It also must be exciting for him to have joined us. So that's lovely. Welcome, Scott. Thanks for tuning in. We've got a question from Luke Where are you, Luke? Where are we? Any thoughts on an independent IPCA, how that may look, how to maintain a balance between citizens, Crown lawyers, how we could possibly start to bring a separation of the state and judiciary? Any thoughts?
Again, ironies. When the IPCA was invented, I was assigned to it. And one of the first, and the original IPCA had a different name, but its objective was to make sure that all the evidence was put before the courts, because the police were going through a very bad period of only putting some. If there was anything there that was beneficial to the accused or defendant, it wasn't put forward. But I think one of the first things I had to investigate was the conduct of one of my sergeants. So I said, I've got a conflict of interest here, and it's not really my alley. I didn't want to stay in that sort of part of it. But the IPCA has evolved to a stage now where, in my view, it has become a backroom justice. And that's unhealthy. I think I forget the exact numbers, but in the last, 20 years or something like 40 people have been shot by police, and none of those cases have been put before a court. In my view, when someone dies as a result of a police action, then there's no, if the prima facie case that the cop did something wrong, it'll go before a court. Irrespective of that, when a death occurs as a result of a police action, it should be put before an open court. An open court where this is a matter of getting confidence back in the police. But if all these things are sorted in the back room, and it's back to the theme of my book, protect the system at the expense of justice. And you have some cases, look, this is really messy. I mean, that Billingham case where the young fellow was shot in Christchurch, he was running around smashing car windows or something. To me, that definitely should have gone before an open court. If you go out deer shooting and you shoot your mate, you didn't mean to, you go up before the court for manslaughter. You take that Tongan driver who was shot out West Auckland by accident. The cop who hit the wrong person, courier driver driving past. No, she didn't mean to do that. But the place for that to be determined is an open court. So everybody can see what's going on, and look, in 99% of the chance of the cases, the police will be exonerated. But that's where, if I'd shot those three guys that I could have shot as an inspector, I know I lawfully could have. In my head, I was doing the sums. If that guy with the shotgun lifts it a bit more and shoots me, I'm dead. But if I shoot him, what are the rules? I must fear death or grievous injury and can't otherwise prevent it, or to someone else. So this is all going around. But I would have been exonerated if I'd have shot them. And I'm sure out of the 40-odd cases I've mentioned in the book, in every case, the cop would be exonerated. But it is better to be exonerated in an open court where all witnesses can be called and examined, and the entire country can see it and get confidence back in the police. But when it's done in a back room, and the investigators are ex-cops, and I won't say now, but in the past, often the head of the IPCA, career path left much to be desired, in my view. It's not a good place for justice at this level. So in answer to the IPCA, it needs a big shake-up, and it needs some handbrakes on it and some specific rules. When there is a death caused by police, whatever the cause, it goes to an open court.
Luke's just added, white-collar crime is rarely investigated and successfully prosecuted. So he's added a little bit more there. We'll come back to some of these questions later. And Jan, thanks for following up with Scott. He's off to get his winter booster. Okay, fair enough. Right, let's go with, there's something else here by, where are we? Somebody else just popped a question up. Welcome aboard, Oh, what we got here? We've got Doug Lyle. There he goes. Welcome aboard, Ross. Your thoughts, please, on the rise of top. Yeah, that's a good question. Top has all of a sudden come out of nowhere, but then again, that's all I seem to see on the media. And obviously, you would know that the Conservative Party are never on the media. Go figure. What's your thoughts on the rise of top?
Well, that's not the Opportunities Party, is it? Or is it?
Yeah, it is the Opportunities Party, correct.
I mean, I got on well with Bob Jones, and what I remember him saying is, never start too early. You get the swing, but there's always the pendulum comes back. And my assessment, with no disrespect to this outfit, they got the swing too soon.
You don't think, though, around the fact that every week, almost every night for a while there, it was full-on promotion by mainstream media, the party, they were sitting,
This shows the prejudice of mainstream media, and but I mean, not everybody's stupid, and mainstream media may be actually doing them more harm than good. Because if you get the swing too soon, the pendulum comes back. And so we'll see what happens.
Thanks, Lynn, for identifying yourself as a lefty. Great to see that you've joined us. I'm pretty sure that we identify with facts as well. You could maybe highlight what it is that you think we're not factual about. But thanks. Yeah, just welcome to the show. Glad you could join in on a conservative conversation. Right, where else have we got? We've got a comment there by Joss. The mainstream media need to register as top election promoter. They're promoting top because they are leftists. Well, the media, yeah, of course. Okay, there we go. Okay, there's another few questions that I want to ask you before we close up. We've been here about 45 minutes, although the first probably 20 minutes was rough with the sound. So we published economy policy that you had actually put together today, you and Paul, our policy lead, and you brought in tariffs. Can you elaborate on why tariffs are a good thing or a bad thing for New Zealand?
Okay, well, John Key brought in the free China trade deal. And if we go back to that time, all of a sudden you could buy a T-shirt for $5 instead of $15. But to me, it was a one-way deal, and the consequence of these free no tariffs for goods coming in include Lane Walker Rudkin, the biggest manufacturer in New Zealand, went broke in 2009 or something or other. So all of a sudden, well, you can buy a new T-shirt for $5, but there's 300, 400, 500 jobs gone out, and now. It's the same. We're exporting logs, but we don't make tables or chairs. So you can buy tables and chairs at a cheaper rate than may have been manufactured here. We export all our sheep's stuff overseas to come back as wool. All the leather goes over and comes back as shoes. So the no tariffs means that shoes, woolen goods, tables, chairs all come in here at such a low price that our manufacturing sector cannot compete. The question is, competing with labor, and in some cases may well be what we would decide as slave labor in some of these Asian countries. Let's go to Trump for a moment. Personally, I think at the moment Trump's lost the plot. He's gone mad. But when he started, I supported him because he was against this neo-colonial, this economics. Can't build a car in the States and get a spark plug from China. So he wanted to change it, and he said the same thing. It may mean that the cost of goods goes up in the States, but we'll be making them back here, and there will be jobs. And I think it's a matter for New Zealand to find the balance of the extremes of no tariffs, which has destroyed the manufacturing industry throughout New Zealand, and extreme tariffs, which I don't know what Muldoon had, but So I think it's very important for the Conservative Party to go forward, and its focus is on what level of tariffs enables the manufacturing sector, as one example, to recover and create jobs in New Zealand, which means people then pay tax, which then money goes to IRD. That means the IRD can then go and expand the hospitals with the tax it gets, rather than going and borrowing to do these things. And of course, the borrowing is what caused the problem under the Jacinda government. And I don't see a hell of a big change with Mr. Luxon. I mean, in my view, if anybody lost the plot, it is Mr. Luxon.
Okay, thank you for that. Now we've just got cheap. Where are we? Everything coming into market needs to abide by the rules of the market. That means all goods and services from overseas must follow our labour, environmental and animal welfare standards. If they can't, tariffed or banned. Okay, and Bronny's got, what would you do to stop our clean coal going to China? Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this for the last couple of elections, Ross, where, our good coal is off to China and we're importing rubbish from Indonesia, and we're also being penalised through ETS taxes, which we could be saving billions from. So what's your thoughts about the stopping that?
Well, I'm very much in favour of allowing foreign companies to come into New Zealand to dig up our minerals and dig up our oil and dig up our coal. They say, well, New Zealand companies could do it, but in fact, our big oligarchs don't seem to want to come back and spend money doing that sort of stuff, wherever they might be. So the private sector money isn't here. That means the government does it. This is back to Muldoon's day and at the time he did all these things, but that's more borrowing. So the government goes and borrows and starts again digging rare earths down in Otago or somewhere. In my view, it makes much more sense for the government. All those rare earths belong to the government. So no foreign company can take it out without paying a big levy or a big bonus percentage of every ton that's excavated to the government. And a foreign company comes in here and then they must employ New Zealanders, and we're back to creating jobs. I'm liberal in some things, but when it comes to this green thing, well, not me. I recall in cabinet committees with Simon Upton at the time. I mean, he and I just didn't strike it. I mean, on these green issues at all. So, greater access to our natural resources is the most important way forward. New Zealand could become self-sufficient in oil, for example. I mean, don't know how much is out there, but the resources are there, and it doesn't have to be the government out doing there. I mean, they're the most ineffective commercial operations in the country are government. It is better to have a private sector foreign company come in, pay a huge stipend to the government to get in here, employ New Zealanders and go and do it. I mean, as I understand, when Jacinda got her way, the Canadians in Taranaki all disappeared. Now, what's wrong with a Canadian company being here doing our oil? But they got screwed. There's just no point staying.
Well, it doesn't help with the Green wanting to tax them all as well. No wonder there is that they're going to just go offshore.
I mean, why didn't, when I was looking for an alternative for National, why didn't I go to the Greens? Maybe you got the answer now.
Exactly. I just want to touch base on Lynn. She's said a couple of things. Exposed to criminals. Sorry, we're going back to the Crew murder. Exposed to criminals who know there is a new Crew murder evidence, Ross. Is that the book that you are currently talking about that you're in the middle of writing?
The Crew chapter is one chapter.
One chapter, okay.
Yeah,
and that's not out yet, though. That hasn't been published yet, has it? You're working on it. No, okay.
I've got it, but it's.
As I'm sure Lynn will be looking forward to that as well. And did I say who I vote for? Actually, I don't even think I said anything about that. I just said welcome to the Conservative conversation. She wants you to start talking about, or somebody to start talking about Winston and Seymour. Well, we're not here for Winston and Seymour, but that's probably not what we're here for tonight, Lynn. Where are we? She wants to also talk about Chloe. Yeah, okay. I'm not so sure about that one either. Right, John, what Norway does, give the taxpayer back money through mining, gas, and oil. Sounds pretty sensible to me.
Yep.
Chris Hutkins, Karen McGoodman, I mean, what about them? Did I miss something, Lynn? Not sure why you've added Labour's MPs there, but anyway, we'll move on. So thank you. I think you've probably covered most things that I wanted to ask you tonight, but I mean, you're with us now. Why? Was there one particular turning point that had you reach out? Because you did reach out to me. Was there one turning point that had you actually reach out to me and to back the Conservative Party, who we are? I mean, we are really grateful to have you on board. You've already brought with it, less than a month, a wealth of knowledge and to us. So we're really grateful to have you here. But what was one turning point, maybe?
Well, again, I think the fundamentals, the family is a priority, and I mean, for me, the private sector over the public sector in commercial activity. I mean, when I finished in my 3 terms, I went back as Winston's. When I finished being an MP, I had a block of land near Silverdale and teaching kids to ride horses for 3 years if it, $25 an hour if it didn't rain, till I got subdivision rights. But in that process, I ended up being engaged by big fishing companies, Telly, Vela, Simonovic. Then there was a contact with Winston, so I ended up Parliamentary Services engaging me as his primary industries fellow there. So I spent a lot of, Winston and I were very good mates once upon a time. But those who will recall, I then became a collector of donations in the same role, and false allegations were made. That resulted in the Scampi affair. That resulted in Winston suing people and Simonovic suing people, and I was a collateral in the whole thing. But in the end, I think TVNZ and Radio and Herald, they were defeated anyway, and there was large volumes of damages paid out.
I think we'll just have to address. Do you know Ben Richards? He's throwing up a few comments here. Do you want to address anything he's got to say, or shall we just move on, scroll on? I don't know if you know. I think he might have a bit of a vendetta by the look of some of the comments. Ben Richards. You want to talk to him or not?
No, I don't know. But so look, with Winston and I were very close amongst all this mess. It was nasty, and again, politics is dangerous. The more injuries from politics than 10 years playing on Eden Park. Yeah. And so I left New Zealand and was out of New Zealand 5-6 years, and all through Europe, the Middle East. And over there, I was helping countries with sustainable fisheries policies to get access to EU. But that damage that occurred in New Zealand over the Scampi affair and the package I carried, put it that way, it damaged Winston and me. So there's a personal aspect to it. But the other thing is, too often I've seen Winston say things and not deliver. He's a likable fellow, charismatic, the most charismatic politician New Zealand has ever had. But in my view, when Winston goes, it's the end of New Zealand first. And as he's loaded the boat with laws, fellow Nash, can you believe it? And Shane Jones, it's going to be one hell of a mess. So rather than be in that mess, I see a great opportunity for the Conservative Party to build a strong foundation for Conservative voters in New Zealand. And many of them still go to Winston because there's nowhere else to go. But it's a matter of the Conservatives providing a different home, a different place to go. And for me, if I'm making contributions, it'll be the economy first all the way, because that's what it's all about. And these other issues, equality before the law is very important. There are personal issues like family first and conscience votes that come up. But I see a great opportunity for the Conservatives to build a very solid party for the future. Last thing, may I say, in my last term, my seat disappeared under MMP. So when I went and saw my old mate Jim Bolger, where am I on the list? He says, well, you can kiss your toes goodbye, nowhere. So I met with Lieutenant Colonel Robbie Munro, who was the Invercargill MP who got dumped, and Graham Reeves, lawyer, and we understood MMP probably before anybody else. I formed a party called Right of Centre. I had 2 meat directors on it, a war board director, the head of the Federated Farmers. It was loaded, but Jim Bolger didn't like me. But and I don't think he understood that major parties forever are going to need a minor party. At the last minute, he had to give Wellington Central to Richard Prebble. Later, Nash gave Epsom to ACT so they could continue to survive. But I am of the view, no disrespect to Winston, you say, remarkable fellow. But when he goes, National New Zealand First that's it, mate. The Conservatives need to build a party, and hopefully the swing will come this time and we'll get 5%, but it needs to have a party there for Conservative voters to go to.
So just before we finish, as you mentioned, so our priorities this election, for those who haven't seen our party politics, is smaller government, family values and policies that work. Underneath that, one of my highest priority is the immigration situation that we have. Immigration, free speech is really important to me, Ross, and I feel like that's a huge issue that New Zealanders are grappling with right now, where we've got a lot of this DEI and woke nonsense in society. So we'll talk more about that, but I'm just going to paste in there on the comments a link to our page for those who are watching now or those who tune in later, our link to the Conservatives New Zealand website. Oh, it's just, I'm not sure, there's an error that's occurred. But anyway, I'll put it up in the comments so you can go directly to our party page and look at all of the policies that we've recently announced. One of the biggest one that we announced at the conference last weekend was abolish the Māori seats. And actually, before we finish, because you helped write that, I would like you to just finish on that note. Why do we want to abolish Māori seats? Ross, take it away.
Well, the speech I prepared for you is virtually identical to a speech I prepared for Winston back in 2000 or so. That's after the Type 5 had stabbed Winston, you may recall. But it's predicated on, and I forget the specificity, but once upon a time, to vote in New Zealand, you had to have own property, be over 21 and own property. So miners in the gold mines, they didn't own property, and Maori didn't own property according to white man's rules. So seats were created for miners and seats were created for Maori to obviate this property caveat. That caveat was taken away, and miners' seats were taken away, but Maori seats were not taken away. So it's a constitutional issue. Not that we've got a constitution, but that's the technical reason why they should be taken away. Under MMP, there are many Maori now in the House, and as I said earlier, Clem Simic made it, Winston made it, I made it, and there are many other Maori out there who can make it without all of these false aids that are putting out there, which are more destructive, in my view, than beneficial as time rolls on.
Oh, I completely agree. Equality before the law. We're not doing Māori any favours. They're very capable, and we know that, and they know that, and they certainly don't need a hand up, because they'll tell you themselves that there's leaders in their field. We've all got Māori in our families, our friends, our communities, and there's should be nobody placed above another.
One last story. When my great-great-grandmother travelled with Meurant from Kawhia through to Waitangi and went through Houghton, Ngāti Whātua gifted her 20 acres in recognition of her chiefly status. Later, Meurant said, darling, we've got to change this to honky title. So he takes it into the office and boom, stamp, here's your 10 acres of European title. Fast forward to when Richard Prebble and Roger Douglas arrive and SOEs are created and the ministries had to quantify what they own. All of a sudden, New Zealand Rail worked out, oh, we've got 10 acres that we don't, 20 acres we don't, 10 acres we don't own. That 10 acres was the 10 acres stolen from my great-great-grandmother by the state when they converted the land. That 10 acres is at the intersection of Remuera Road and Newmarket. I was party to, when I was an MP, making a claim for the recovery. Sand was kicked in my face by a former colleague, Douglas Montrose Arthur Graham. But somewhere that land should be, I mean, we're talking about Maori land claims. Some of them are malicious or false, but that is a blatant theft of 10 acres, and it's from my great-great-grandmother.
Okay, understood.
Well,
However,
for those who think, yes, for those who think I'm anti-Maori or whatever because I'm saying you don't need all the handouts. Also aware that my family had, there were a lot of genuine claims out there where land was appropriated from Maori, a lot of them. But a lot of them, but many are unjustifiable under the view. I make the case that this particular case, it's my family, but it's justifiable.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your personal situation. And I will just go to this question because I think it looks like it's relevant. I'm told by my mayor that Māori iwi are not subject to official information requests. I'm not sure if that's only a local government level. He said it's because OIA request replies only apply to government agencies, maybe with clarification if this is the case. It's good for a future conversation. Now, that is good for a future conversation. Thanks, Luke. And what I was going to suggest for all of you watching and those who tune in later is add your comments, continue to add your comments, because after tonight we are going to be doing a few more live videos, recordings, interviews. So put your ideas out, what you'd like us to chat about, not only for Ross and myself, but some of our other spokespeople. We've got some fantastic spokespeople. Now we've got a few new candidates. Doug Lyle up in Northland is standing, which is fantastic. We've still got our Carl Thomas down south here, as well as a few other newbies. So we've got Paul. Are you standing a candidate in Waimakariri? Now I'm pretty sure I can talk to you about that. There is going to be somebody out there, and we'll let you know very soon. So if you're living out there, Paul, keep an eye out. Hopefully you have signed up to receive all of our email updates, and then you'll be able to see the news on that one soon. All right. Thank you, Ross. Thanks for joining us tonight. As I said, it's great to have you on board. And if there are questions that come in later, I'll send them through to Ross and he'll get back to you. So everyone in the audience, great that you've joined us tonight, and we will touch base again in another interview. So thank goodness we got the mic worked out. So thanks to that person. I can't remember what your name is. Thank you for helping me work that out. We'll see you again soon. Good night all.